Right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start with a show of hands, if we can. Who in the room actually has an Android device? Okay. And of those Android users, how many of you have ever received or sent an RCS message?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad. Don't usually get as good a response to that question, so that's great. I think the reason I'm here today is partly because of this guy. I think it's safe to say that Dean is not a huge fan of RCS. It's a shame, isn't it?
Yes.
I didn't realise actually that so many of you were friends of this guy. This is a slide I've used a few times, but I mean, Dean's actually not wrong. RCS in its original perceived format is dead. Okay. The idea that mobile operators are going to deploy RCS infrastructure, bolt it on front of their IMS stack, and deliver RCS as users that way, dead, gone, buried. He's not wrong. But this guy is also not wrong. Okay. RCS is not dead, and the reason it's not dead is all because of Google.
Mm-hmm.
Google acquired a company called Jive Mobile in 2015, and there was a release of Android Lollipop 5.1 in 2015 as well. It's the first time that RCS got embedded into the stack. So with this sort of true client-server approach that Google have brought with Android, with Jive Mobile, we've got a viable RCS ecosystem now. And this is really what's fueling RCS, is P2P RCS. So it's a screenshot of a conversation I had with my son on my Android device. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, they're all tagged now as being RCS messages. So anyone on Android, speaking to Android, typically, as long as they're configured correctly, is using RCS today. In the native messaging app, IP-based channel, rich media, it has suggested replies, some nice cool features. It's better than SMS. That's the point. Fully end-to-end encrypted as well now. It's free to use. I've actually met people from mobile operators with Android devices who didn't realise they were using RCS. But it's there, it's being used, and a recent change from Google is users now opted in by default. So formerly, users had to find the settings, opt themselves in for RCS, but now they're opted in by default. So we're expecting numbers to grow, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. It is Android only, so we can say goodbye to Apple. But as we all know, of course, Android is the dominant handset OS. Obviously, different analysts disagree about the number of devices on them globally deployed today, but I think we're talking about sort of 4.8 billion devices out there which are potentially available to access RCS. It's not a small market by any means. The reason I'm here with my Sinch logo on my back talking about RCS is because there's an A2P RCS play. It's called RCS Business Messages, or RBM. It leverages the fact that there's a P2P channel that enables Google to offer an A2P channel sitting on top of that. But it's been deployed, unlike SMS, where there's very little difference between an A2P SMS and a P2P SMS. With RCS, it's a completely different user flow, a completely different look and feel to the client. This is one I mocked up during yesterday's session, showing how easy it is to put together, but it uses the same, so messages are received in the same messaging inbox as the SMS messages. It's fully IP-based. Choice of rich media, we can do all kinds of things, which I'll show you in a second. Every single sender agent is customized for the customer that it's being used for. So every single sender agent has logos, it's got banner images, taglines, etc., etc. Crucially, it's actually verified. So when you click on the little checkmark icon, you'll either see it's verified by your operator or you'll see it's verified by Google. This gives the user assurance that they're speaking to who they think they're speaking to or they're hearing from. Google have got spam protection in play, so this is not end-to-end encrypted. It's encrypted from us to Google and then encrypted from Google to the user. But Google sit in the middle and monitor the content to make sure that users are not being unfairly spammed or there's fraudulent content going through. I'll let Google themselves talk about how they do that. But also crucially for the industry, we have real delivery receipts and red notifications. It's really interesting to see Guillaume a second ago put up that 98% SMS statistic that we all know to be true. I don't think it's actually possible to measure when an SMS message is read. So I'm not entirely sure that we should still be using that statistic. Nevertheless, A2P RCS, just like a regular A2P SMS message, free to receive and free to reply to. So this is what RCS looks like when it's done correctly. Just a little video demo here of a campaign that our team here in Paris put together for a company called Picard. Picard are a frozen food company. You can also buy their products in the UK, which is nice. And as you can see, this is a full sort of chatbot type experience. We're leading customers down through a purchasing flow. You know, what kind of menus are they interested in? How much money do they want to spend? You can see that there's some rich images here, and carousels that can scroll left and right, allowing users to look at and choose what they want to do. Come on, thank you. And these kind of campaigns deliver fantastic results for our customers. So this is not a marketing pitch, but just to give you a feel for this, you know, we get a 3 times open rate when we do an A/B test on RCS versus what we call rich SMS here in France. Rich SMS is an SMS with a link. When you click on the link, it leads you to a similar experience. But 3 times as many people open and engage with the RCS. 42% more follow the flow all the way down to the very end. And we see, you know, real-time revenue results for our customers at the end. So even though there's only a sort of a 33% market share of RCS versus non-RCS devices here in France, you know, it's significantly outperforming what we're getting for marketing than we could achieve with SMS. So with RCS, there are 3 message types. This is quite important, and I'll explain in a second why. First one is called basic. It's intended to complement SMS. It effectively looks like an SMS. It's up to 160 characters, it's text only, there's no media, very, very simple. And what Google are doing at the moment is working with the mobile operators to have this charged at the same price to the aggregators as an SMS message. So that allows us to use this for SMS type use cases. The next one is called a single message. It's intended to be an MT only. Typically these are used to drive users to a web store. So, you know, sale now on, here's our latest items, click here, come to our store and complete your purchase online. Interestingly, they kind of tag the pricing of this to SMS itself. So typically 1.4 to 1.6 times the cost of an A2P SMS. And then a conversation, which is the demo that I just showed, which, because you've got a number of messages flowing backwards and forwards, it's obviously not cost effective to do that on a per message basis. So the 24-hour session is created and messages are sent back and forwards in that 24 hours. Globally, this is what Sinch Reach looks like today. We have a policy of connecting to, I didn't introduce myself, did I? But I'll come back to it. We have a policy of connecting to every single mobile operator where we can. And what I've shown in gold here is the countries where we have full reach. So connection to every single viable mobile operator. Obviously there are 1,001 operators, carriers in the US alone, but the big 3 are certainly covered. As you can see, there's significant white space, grey space, Middle East, a lot of Africa to be done, and Australasia. So I was going to take, obviously there are 3 players in the ecosystem, the operators, the enterprises, and the aggregators. I just wanted to pick up some highlights of what it looks like to each one of those 3 parties in the world of RCS. As far as the operators are concerned, they're very concerned about the threat of the so-called over-the-top channels. Very careful using that word with Dean still in mind, but there is a threat. Traffic is moving onto WhatsApp and other. We heard from Uniphonic yesterday that WhatsApp is dominant in the Gulf, and also as SMS rates, MT rates are increasing, there's obviously some kind of dilution on the use as well, just through sort of sheer price elasticity. What Google are offering to the mobile operators is this kind of zero risk, zero investment approach. So Google will come along, they'll deploy their infrastructure. There's no need for the operators to go out and sign deals with Nokia or Ericsson and as I said earlier, add this onto their IMS stack, and Google simply provides billing reports to the operators. So it's everything they need to actually monetize RCS. And it's low effort. They don't need to maintain this infrastructure either. All they have to do is approve sender agents to ensure that we get the little stamp that we saw a second ago on the sender. But of course, operators are a little bit nervous dealing with Google. Yes, they have to go out and sign an agreement with Google, but not all carriers, not all operators necessarily trust the world's largest search engine. From the aggregator's point of view, it's quite interesting. Google have replicated the A2P SMS model. So we are, as a company like Sinch, with a lot of global direct connect agreements with mobile operators, we can just add a simple contract amendment to add RCS onto our A2P termination. It's great for us, but it also enables us to cement our dominance in that space, which I know is something that Johnny was picking up on yesterday with those direct carrier agreements. Again, at Sinch, I'm wearing the badge, so I would mention that our connectivity, our RCS reach is available to anyone who wants to work with us. Time and money, we spent a lot of effort and time working with RCS, and it's only really now it's beginning to pay us back. So there's been a lot of investment gone in, not least in evangelism, people like myself travelling around the world talking about RCS. RCS is still a very manual process, and I'll spend a bit of time talking about that in a second. But also it's just another channel that we have to support. So, as a messaging aggregator, we grew up on the back of A2P SMS. We did a little bit in MMS, which is now obviously quite large in the US, but now we have to support WhatsApp, we have to support Twitter, we have to think about Facebook Messenger, Line, WeChat. The list just goes on and on, KakaoTalk. RCS is just another channel we have to think about. And none of these channels are as ubiquitous as SMS. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of investment, and a lot of big bets to be played. So just to spend a bit of time on the RCS pain points, kind of from an aggregator's perspective, but it actually affects the entire ecosystem. One of the biggest problems we have at the moment is all sender agents are actually set up manually. We have to log into a portal, we have to type into it, we have to copy and paste images into it. That doesn't scale brilliantly, but I would give a green check mark to Google. We're actually working with them on early access to programmable API that will enable us to do a lot of this work using APIs instead, which is obviously great. The next pain point is that Google is doing their best to protect their users. And one of the things that they do, two of the things they do in fact, are every single sender agent, every identity that we create has to be set a billing category and a use case category, and those are frozen. So once we set up a sender agent, we say, okay, we're going to use this one just for conversational use cases, which that's about. We're just going to use this one for basic messages. We're just going to send text-based messages. Once that's set on that sender agent, we can't then suddenly start sending media. It just won't work. And in order to get that changed, we've actually got to open a support ticket and get Google to change it on the back end. So that is painful because that restricts our ability to move and change and do different things. Again, with SMS, you just send the text and no one really cares. Similar around the use case as well. So we have to specify if a sender agent is going to be used for a promotional or transactional basis, or maybe it's going to be used for both, in which case it's multi-use, or maybe it's going to be one-time passwords. But it cannot be one-time passwords. It can't be set up for one-time passwords and then suddenly be used for a transactional message. So again, it's kind of restrictive and a little bit painful for us. We're so used to just setting up an SMS sender and using it for whatever we want. Sender agent approval is a nightmare and it takes forever. I get it. I really do get it. If Google are going to put their stamp on it and say, we verify this sender, or the mobile operator is going to do likewise, they want to make sure that the sender agent is going to be used properly. But we have to demonstrate how the user opts in, what the sender agent is going to be used for, how the user agent opts out, demonstrate the opt-out, provide videos. They like the agents to be able to log in themselves and use the agent. It's an incredible amount of work goes into this, and this is all very, very manual. And then, of course, the operators get involved. They add paper forms on top, Excel sheets, Word documents. You know what it's like when the operators go crazy. Luckily, they're not charging yet. So I'm going to give this one a red cross. But finally, just to talk about the billing logic, because the billing logic is horrific. When the very model, we were signing a contract with one of the Vodafone properties for RCS termination. They sent us their definition of the billing model. It was a 12-page PDF full of pictures. And when you get to the point where you have to create a rating model so you can bill your customers for messages and determine whether and if a session is established and how the rules of that session work in such a way to ensure that your billing reconciles with the operator that you've got to pay for termination, it's a nightmare. But, green tick to Google, because Google provide all the billing to the operators, they're actually going to be providing Sinch and other aggregators our view of their billing records to the operators. So for the first time ever, we're going to have complete 100% reconciliation with the operators, which is fantastic for the industry. Very quickly, brands view. What do they think about RCS? We've talked about this a little bit online, but typically the view is taken at the moment, because this is an operator messaging channel. If their user has opted in for SMS, if they've opted in for MMS, then brands can actually reuse that, and we don't need to get additional opt-in, and that is actually a really powerful part of the channel. There's a problem with predictability of costs. If I send a message on a conversational sender agent and nobody replies, it doesn't get billed as a conversation, it gets billed as a single message, which is cheaper. But if I want to send a single message on a conversational channel and somebody does reply, I'll be billed more than I think I am. So this unpredictability of costs is a bit of a problem for brands. It would be nice if there was a little bit more control, and that's some of the reason for the billing categories. But nevertheless, sometimes there can be unpredictable costs, usually to their favour, to be fair. Apple is always the big elephant in the room, and a lot of brands just can't see past the fact that this is not a ubiquitous channel. It doesn't work on Apple devices, it is Android only. But as what we see for the use case before, when we do a strong RCS campaign, it really does deliver. Very quickly about Sinch's RCS journey, I thought it was interesting to put this in, because this is the same but different as the Uniphonic journey that we saw yesterday. So we started with an API. We've still got our own public-facing API, which is still our specification. We're looking to standardise that and move on to the industry standard GSMA map specification, which is the only part of the GSMA RCS that lives on. But what we found is that our APIs, unlike some people in this room, a lot of people find APIs difficult to connect to, difficult to work with. So we actually set up a service layer first. Based here in Paris, our French team started building these campaigns for customers. And the campaign we saw earlier was built for our customer. They didn't invoke that themselves, we built that for them using our Sinch marketing team. They were using a lot of internal tools, Node-RED flow builders and all kinds of bits and pieces. And then we thought, well, actually, if we need to use internal tools to build stuff for our customers, why don't we reverse that back and then offer self-service tools to our customers? And that's what we're currently doing. We've got a new campaign tool, which customers are beginning to set up and run and send their own campaigns, primarily those single rich card type messages with call to action to the website. But what's new in town is this idea of converting SMS to RCS. Why would you bother? Because we can deliver the same SMS content over RCS. The users get the branded message, they get the trust of the verification, they know that the message really is bona fide, has come from where they think it is. Moreover, it kind of shows the world, the enterprise, the pathway that we're on, starting with improving SMS where we can, leaving SMS as SMS where we can't, and then moving on down to sort of conversational RCS, and off we go. But there's another really, really good reason to convert SMS to RCS. I've called it the great Google incentive, but we've actually got some free termination. So if we can get free termination instead of paid for termination, it allows us to be more creative with the pricing that we can offer our customers. SMS is getting very, very expensive. And the more that operators, enterprises are using it, the more and more they're beginning to see that cost on their bottom line. So if we can do something with RCS to help them continue to use mobile as a channel, it helps us to remain relevant, and it helps us drive messages in the ecosystem. So what I've shown on the map there is just all the countries where there's one or more operator we can actually reach free of cost. I don't think Google are necessarily going to keep this window open forever. I just heard about a rumour of another operator that's about to get closed down for free termination, just before I came up here on stage. So it's closing fast, but it's certainly something that's helping us to drive things forward. So a couple more slides if I'm all right for time, Alan. But there are some threats out there in the RCS world. I thought it was worth bringing them up. First thing we saw was spam on RBM. So this happened in India, and actually there was no surprise here. It was hiding in plain sight. If you see the sender ID there, it says, ads mania. Google opened up India for RCS. They opened it up free of cost. And there's nothing that the online advertising promotion world likes more than a free channel to be able to just go and send messages to whoever they want to. First thing that Google did when they picked up on this, literally from customer complaints on Twitter, was just to shut down all of India. Very draconian, shut down India. We went away and figured out how to fix it, and they fixed it by basically just applying costs. Typically, when you apply costs and you shut down any path of getting around the back door, you can eliminate spam. So that's worked really, really well, and it's to Google's credit that they did that. Next thing is RCS spam. And I'm very pleased to report that this screenshot came from my own handset. I woke up one Saturday morning and I'd had a spam message over RCS. This is going to be a challenge because this is a free channel. So you can go and buy a SIM card in the UK today, 99 pence, less than £1. You can connect your device over Wi-Fi. You don't have to buy any mobile credit. You don't have to put any credit at all on the device. You've got a free working SIM with a free RCS channel. So it's going to be interesting to see what Google do about this. With end-to-end encryption, it's kind of hard to spot what's going on until the message arrives at the device. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out. And the other thing we've begun to see is A2P being bypassed using RCS. Again, there's a free P2P channel. So if it makes economic sense to do SIM boxes for SMS, then why not use RCS where it's free of charge and you don't even have to worry about messaging quotas or mobile operators monitoring you, seeing which MSC you're connected to, or having to drive trucks around the M25, which apparently SIM boxes do, because you can just run all this over the IP channel, run it all over Wi-Fi, and nobody will ever know until the messages arrive. So this is another thing that Google, I know, are actively looking into. They've got some great techniques that they're looking at, but eventually what we know about great techniques is when the fraudsters find out, they learn how to bypass them. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as RCS goes. The only other thing was to make sure I addressed all Alan's questions, really. We can do that across the room just to make sure that everyone's happy. What's happening on the ground at the moment, I hope I've covered that. Why is it still so complicated for aggregators? I think we've kind of covered that. Not all global aggregators are interested. Why? Is that problem of the direct connects, the model works on commercial agreements with the operators? And enterprises are still holding back. What's going on? Well, hopefully, as we push more and more of this SMS to RCS, we're going to see more and more enterprises and large brands getting involved. I'm now ready for questions.
Excellent, thank you so much. So you have two questions here, go for it.
Do you want to pass the mic or?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's all right. Standing here.
Do you think this is going to, if this starts to get more popular, is this going to inflate the Apple stock from people who don't want to use this on Android as a consumer? I can imagine that if I start getting certain messages, and maybe I'm on roaming in the middle of the night, I will not be very pleased. And I rarely get SMS.
It's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way around. I've thought about it the other way around. Obviously, Google run their own campaign of get the message with Apple. Whether Apple going to adopt the standard and allow RCS onto their devices.
Because now in the States, the iMessage versus now RCS, it's a status symbol.
Exactly.
And I think if the status symbol comes with, hey, Google is not reading these messages, and I'm gonna get less advertisements. Google's business model is still the advertisements.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it drive people away from Android completely, or is there some way out, some way to opt out of all these messages, the promotional ones, for example?
So I would say the vulnerability, so to say, of RCS being used for spam. You can do the same thing with iMessage, right? It's exactly the same.
I'm not just talking about spam. I'm talking more about the paid-for marketing campaigns.
The paid-for marketing campaigns are to opted-in only users, and as I said, as I showed, Google are very stringent on that. So it shouldn't be the case that you are receiving marketing messages that you're not expecting.
Google approved some fake KeyPass advertisements verified this week as well.
Did they? Okay. Yeah.
They still have some issues to iron out.
There are some holes in the verification process. I'm not going to pretend that. When you begin to ask them how do you actually verify that this is a bona fide brand, it's not really the right answer to the question that they give. With my other sort of experience in phishing, I know how other things can be done. So I won't go too deep into that. But I think just one point I wanted to pick up on. Everyone's like, how can we get Apple involved in this? Is the DMA, European Digital Markets Act, going to force them to connect for P2P? What I know about Apple is all they care about, their main concern is their users' experience on their device. And if we continue to demonstrate that RCS delivers these exceptionally rich campaigns that users enjoy, the engagement times are very, very high. When they receive these chatbot-driven type campaigns, they're very, very happy to engage with them. I think the more of that we do, the more Apple would be potentially interested in opening up for A2P RCS, if not P2P RCS, of course.
Great presentation, thank you very much. So I have a question. When you're trying to send in a campaign, let's say a campaign or RCS campaign, and you figure out or you identify that this number is not activated on RCS, so what happens? You send it through an SMS, Apple Business Chat, or just go to WhatsApp? You give the users an option. What do you do in this case?
You can do a number of things. So typically what we do with our French consultancy is customers come to us with a list of business. We scan all those businesses and discover which ones are RCS, and then we build an RCS campaign around those numbers and send it out. RCS capability is changing all the time, so we do get quite a high failure rate on that, relatively high. So we send out RCS to the RCS-enabled devices, and then for the non-RCS devices, we can either not do anything, we can send what we call a rich SMS campaign, which is an SMS with a clickable link on it. We try and include some personal information in that message so that the user knows it's not necessarily a phishing message, but links in SMS messages are becoming problematic. We can just do a plain text SMS campaign. We can do all kinds of different things, WhatsApp, whatever. We have methods of automating that. We have methods of doing that manually. Typically, usually, if we're building a bespoke campaign, we do that manually.
So and another quick question. So and when you compare the pricing that is offered with RCS compared to the latest WhatsApp pricing, how do you see them? Like you see it the equivalent, less, more cost effective. Like how do you see it for businesses in terms of pricing?
I don't look at WhatsApp pricing, so it's quite hard to answer that question, I'm afraid. In comparison to SMS pricing, I think it's cost effective. Sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, but the results kind of speak for themselves. So,
okay, thank you.
Robert, I just need you over here to come up, okay? And then you. Okay. Oh, you know.
I wasn't expecting any interest in RCS at all. So.
Well, it's getting sort of real with a whole host of issues.
So it's very interesting for me because I launched RCS. I was the product manager at Orange 14 years ago. When we did the big launch of RCS. Actually,
how's it going?
And actually part of the code on the device that Google used was developed by my team. So when we find out that it was not going to work, we give them the code. So the first one. Anyway, so my question was, so at that time, RCS was rich communication suite. So it was communication, meaning it was not just text. And so there was a lot of things around video. During the calls, we could add video, we could, during a call, exchange information, etc. So is that all part dead? And it's just a better SMS, but it's not going to do more than that? Or is RCS still trying to do things more in the real time and video field?
I think, yeah, I mean, I was looking at some of the specifications myself the other day. I wasn't going too deep, but I was seeing all this video stuff and I think I don't recognise any of this at all. So, yeah, I mean, primarily today it's a messaging product, a better SMS messaging product. Google are starting to innovate. So they've just added the ability to receive mobile tickets and push them directly into the Google Wallet. This is interesting because that wasn't kind of thought of back in 2015, 2012, or whenever the specifications were written. I think we're going to see more and more divergence over time. If I may, I think Google have Brexited RCS from the GSMA, and they will begin to diverge, and they will begin to change, and they will begin to push the boundaries and do some interesting new stuff.
Okay, so any other questions? Just a quick one. Will carriers really verify brands?
Carriers verify brands, yeah. So it varies on a country-to-country basis, operator-to-operator basis, but certainly in the UK, they will reach out. We have to provide contact details.
Yeah.
I'll provide TAD Summit details. They will email you, and they will say, do you give permission to Sinch to register an RCS sender agent in your name?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. But in your experience so far, is it all verification through Google? Because Google knows most businesses that are out there. You have Google Maps, you have all this stuff where you have to register yourself as an identifiable business.
So the verification part is actually the gatekeeping on the charging.
Gotcha.
If we register a sender agent, we do it all through the Google portal, and we say we want to set it up on this operator, this operator, this operator, this operator, and any operator that is tagged as providing operator approval, Google will do the preliminary checks, but then push it over to them to do their checks as well.
Understand.
And at the point where they come back and they say, okay, so we want to set up a TAD Summit sender identity, but Sinch have not got agreement with us to send messages, we're not going to approve this, so therefore we can block them from sending to the customers on our network.
Okay, and then within Google Messages you already have spam protection, so why doesn't that protection just extend to all the RBS messages? Spam goes to my spam folder on my Google Messages.
Right, so there is, and the Android people will tell you this, there is that same spam protection at the Android level.
Yeah.
But it's not done in the cloud because of the end-to-end encryption.
Yeah, which is fine.
But it is done on the device, yeah.
Yeah, so there already is some degree of spam protection.
Yeah.
And what stops Google becoming a campaign provider and then sort of squeezing you out of the business?
That is the big question.
Cool.
They are the only people currently operating in this mode. And my personal view is we should make hay while that particular sun shines.
That's great. Excellent. A round of applause for a great presentation. Thank you.